So in this segment, we're going to be talking about Labour's MPs becoming more and more annoyed at Keir Starmer's lack of message and his struggle in the polls. We're also going to be talking about him throwing Annalise Dodds under the bus, or at least briefing against her for some reason to, the Murdoch papers, which is a scummy thing to do. From what is more and more looking like a very scummy human being. So senior Labour MPs want Starmer to bring in a big figure to provide greater direction in his leadership. What they want is some new Labour Don who did well during the late 90s, early 2000s. That's what they want, which isn't going to work because politics has changed now. So, bringing in one of those figures. We had Gordon Brown, who was more centre-left. We had Ed Miliband, who famously said, one of his policies was cutting tuition fees from £9,000 to £6,000, centristy. So bringing in a centre-left candidate or a centrist candidate won't work. You need something else, and I can't fully put my finger on it, but going back to the old, Bill Clinton, Tony Blair playbook won't work here. So amid concerns within the party that caution and a lack of ambition are holding back his performance about Starmer. So caution and a lack of ambition are what New Labour were, centrist policies that were half measures. PFI contracts, private funded. It was, getting money from the private sector to fund hospitals and then giving those private sector companies massive amounts of profit from doing these things. These are New Labour policies. So, that won't work because, in the article, they want him to be radical, credible and affordable, but you cannot be those three things together. You can be radical and affordable, but the taxpayer won't see you as credible. You can be credible and affordable, but you cannot be radical because those things don't work. You have to spend money. You have to spend money to fix the economy, to fix the country. And so if you do that, you might be seen as radical and credible, but it won't be seen as affordable, if that makes sense. So yeah, I jumped the shark a bit there, but we'll carry on. Shadow cabinet ministers are understood to be among those who have concerns that Starmer is losing crucial momentum at the end of his first year in office. He barely had any momentum, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but he didn't have that much momentum. With several MPs calling for more experience to be injected into his team to spell out what Keir is for. The thing is, you don't need an experienced head to do that. I could told you that. I have no experience in politics beyond, getting my degree. I've never run for office. I've never been part of a team for, within politics. I've been saying that for at least 6 months, that Starmer needs something. It's not enough just to say the government aren't doing a good job. You need to counter. You can dodge all the shots you want, my bro, but if you're not hitting back, if you're not the aggressor, you're not going to get points on the judge's scorecard. You're not going to be seen by the public as doing anything. Because all you're saying is, I disagree with that policy. It's like, what do you stand for? Like, don't ask me. I don't know yet. It's not the election. I don't know what that was an impression of, but hopefully I didn't break your ears doing that. But point being is that if you don't stand for something, it's easy to criticise someone, but if you don't put anything forward, you look stupid. And that's what Starmer is doing. It comes as the Conservatives are still enjoying a lead in the polls, with several pollsters suggesting that that there's a vaccine bounce, but then when the vaccine rollout slows down during the summer, we should see a dip in the polls for the Conservative Party. If we don't, then that means that's a failure on Starmer's part of not doing enough to claw back those points that were given from the quote-unquote vaccine bounce. Short-term annoyances in the run-up to the budget, during which Labour contrived to have a row over its own position on corporation tax because they don't actually know what rate they want it at. They don't want the Conservatives to raise corporation tax, which is a tax on profits by corporations. If, Labour standing against that is bizarre. Shadow Business Secretary Ed Miliband backed electric cars while conceding he didn't have one. That's a bit of an own goal, but that's more of an optics own goal than anything. He could make the point that, I don't have one for practical reasons. That's why we need to change the system. So having an electric car is more practical. That's something he could have said. So it didn't have to be as big as that it's made out to be, but because these guys have no understanding of what they're doing, it looks stupid. The emergence of wider unease follows Mandelson's call for Starmer to begin a review of the party's policies. And like I said, you can be radical and credible, but you won't be affordable. You can be credible and affordable, but you will not be radical. And you can be radical and affordable. You could put forward, I'm sorry about the background noise, you can put forward policies that are radical and the taxpayer can be funded through taxation and things like that, but your credibility is going to take a hit because people are going to see that sort of spending as not good, as not credible. Your plans may not be seen as credible, if that makes sense. So you won't have all three in one. Most likely, what they want is him to be credible and affordable and not radical. There's also been concern that the party's main message for the local elections so far has focused on NHS pay, with some worrying that it may soon be undermined by the government's higher pay offer. Because this is it, man. This is, Starmer spamming the same move over and over again, and the government finally realising that, oh wait, this move is actually easy to counter. That's what's going to happen. Or that it fails to appeal to other public and private sector workers hit hard by the pandemic. Because if Starmer doesn't push for a pay rise in general for people, then that's going to look like, what? Oh, what? Why NHS workers getting a pay rise, but I lost my job, or I'm getting a pay cut? That's what's going to happen. People do underestimate the amount of the mountain of ish Keir Starmer has inherited, which is true. But as a leader, it's up to him to fix it. The great leaders are the ones who can fix a chaotic mess, right? The great managers, people like Pep, Fergie, all of these people are the ones who can fix things, institutions, and bring them back to where they should be. If Starmer cannot fix this, he proves himself not to be a great leader. We saw that, in the 90s, Tony Blair managed to fix the Labour Party despite all of its shortcomings. So, despite the fact that Tony Blair's a despicable human being, he still managed to fix the Labour Party, quote-unquote, fix the Labour Party, and managed to get them a win in 97, a big win too. So, why can't Starmer do this? Is it because he's not a leader? He's not a good enough leader. That seems to be the case. But these guys can spin it as how they want. Another one said there's a deep frustration in the shadow cabinet over a lack of direction. And the thing is, without Starmer giving his shadow ministers the latitude to come up with policies and ideas and put them out into the public, it really hampers them, because it's like another football analogy. It's Man United under Van Gaal. It's very chess orientated, it's very, very light movements. Everyone's in their specific places, but what happens is you get no dynamism, you get no creativity. And the thing is, people like Dodds, who is going to be, by the looks of things, replaced by Starmer because he's flailing in the polls and he's blaming her for it, is that you're not gonna do good regardless of who you get in, because it's not the shadow ministers that are completely at fault here. It's you, big man. Because you're not giving them the freedom to come out with policies that are popular or unpopular. You're not helping them at all. So there is a widespread acknowledgement in the party that Starmer faced a major challenge after taking power from Corbyn. That's not surprising. There is still a lot of infighting within the Labour Party, and we saw centrist politicians leave the Labour Party, and there were issues within the Labour Party over things like anti-Semitism. I'm never going to deny that, because we've seen it. Regardless, people claim the media ran with it, spun and all this stuff, yeah. That problem existed within the Labour Party and was not fixed quick enough. Concerns have begun to focus on former MP Jenny Chapman, his director of politics, and Morgan McSweeney, his chief of staff. I don't know a lot about these characters. MPs complain of being ignored, and there is no sense of shared political project. So what that's telling you is that Starmer is very insular. It's very Theresa May-like, where he's, by the looks of things, relying on these two people, just like May relied on Nick Timothy and some other lady to help her a lot. And that says to me that Starmer is a bit of an introvert, that he struggles to put himself out there and talk to people. And so what that means is that if these MPs and shadow ministers don't feel a part of the shared project, they will shiv you when the time comes. And they will not hesitate to do that, because you're not allowing them in. You're just ignoring them, saying, I'm the leader, I can do what I wish. Some called for more experience. Again, it's not about bringing in experience, it's about listening to people and figuring out policies that are going to work and resonate with people. That's what you need to do right now. The problem is that Starmer's team is very inexperienced. We are in a bit of a state. They've spent too much time over the last year trying to appease the hard left. That's the most nonsense thing I've ever heard. Starmer has done nothing to appease the hard left or even the left. Which policies has Starmer implemented to appease the hard left? When he kicked out Jeremy Corbyn of the Labour Party, was that to appease the hard left? Honestly, what an absolute clown. And this person didn't put their name on it. I wonder why. I wonder why they did not stick their name on this quote. Shameful. I bet you it was Rachel Reeves. I'd put money on it being Rachel Reeves, and being too cautious, trying to look like a government in waiting. But that's his job. He's meant to be a government in waiting. There's a lot of concern in the PLP about Keir's office in general, and that they're trying to say he's trying to appease the hard left. That's why he's struggling in the polls. Is simply untrue. The most ridiculous statement I've heard all week. All week. You know, another MP said the impetus should come from the leader himself. Keir is the leader of the party. He doesn't need a crutch to lean on. He just needs to get out there and lead. You know, he's the big figure, and that's the thing. He's the leader. He needs to go out there and lead. He needs to start picking policies and start delegating to people so that they can actually do things rather than just waiting for the Conservative Party to constantly mess up. Because at the moment, they're on the upswing, and you're on the downswing, my friend. You're in a negative spiral. Allies of Chapman and McSweeney say critics have seriously underestimated the work they have done to save the Labour Party. What work have they done? Tell me, I'll wait. Tell me, what work have they done? They have spearheaded an overhaul in the party structures in the wake of factional fighting. I mean, I think they've reformed the complaint system, but there is still massive amounts of alleged racism within the Labour Party, which is not being, which those complaints are not being listened to. You know, we know of racial abuse that MPs have suffered. I think Diane Abbott was one of them, by Labour staffers, and nothing has happened to those people. So, you know, this idea that they're there to, these people saved the Labour Party is absolute nonsense. You know, in the wake of factional fighting that took place under Jeremy Corbyn's leadership, the factional fighting looks like it's ending because people are just leaving the Labour Party. I know multiple people who have just left the Labour Party because they've had enough. It's a joke. Sources said that they had been flat out during Starmer's first year, securing a new general secretary, shoring up Starmer's support on the party's ruling. Again, this is all jargon and things like that. You know, this is them putting in people to help shore up Keir Starmer. So, you know, you're doing your job at a basic level. Like, shut up. Like, you're not doing anything difficult. It might be subtle what they do, but they are ruthlessly effective. Well, they are so subtle that no one has any idea what they have done. So, there you go. An incredibly important part of our strategy has been fixing the party. You haven't fixed the party. The party is dying in the polls. We've suffered one of the worst, we've suffered very badly from this pandemic. Our economy has shrunk the most, I think, in the G7 or the G20. I can't remember which one it was. And, our vaccine rollout is starting to slow down. You should not be struggling in the polls as much as you are, my friend. Ultimately, figures close to Starmer said the public was understandably focused on the vaccine drive, making it a bad time to make judgments about Labour's performance. Bruv, you've been struggling in the polls for a while now. Let's not pretend that it's the vaccine that have done this. You have no message. You have no core. That's the main problem. The details of Labour's local election campaign are being overseen by Rayner and two experienced Labour campaigners, Simon Fletcher and Annalise Midgley. I mean, these people are going to get thrown on the bus next. Can see that happening when Labour struggles in the local elections because their only messages raise the pay of NHS workers, but they won't tell you how much they want to raise it by. At least the SNP have put a figure on it at 4%. What are Labour's policy? Are they for 1%? No, they're for the 2.1% that was already budgeted. So that's 2% lower than the SNP. Like, you barely stand for anything. It's painful. Politics is all about momentum, said a Labour frontbencher. If you're too cautious, then the wind leaves your sails, and it can sometimes be very difficult to get it to blow again. I mean, I suppose that's true, but you can generate your own wind, your own luck in this case, and you haven't done so. You can start hitting the water with the oars and start sailing hard, but you're choosing not to. Set open sail, my friend. So if we look at the polls here, since July, so which ones, see Starmer's in green, so, he was above Boris Johnson in the summer. The vaccine didn't kick into November, so, October he was doing okay. He wasn't above Boris Johnson. He was 1 point ahead in September. December he dipped again. January he went back up. The vaccine's still being rolled out, and now he's dipping. To blame just the vaccine is a bit stupid, because we can tell that's not the case. The big dip here could be in part due to the vaccine, but because the rollout is slowing down, and the lockdown easement may slow down due to the vaccine rollout being slowed down, we should see a bounce back up in the polls. But I don't think we're going to see that. So yeah, shameful stuff. And here we go. Dodds, an Oxford-educated economist, is highly intelligent but has failed to communicate effectively the party's vision. But I ask you this question, what is the party's vision? What is she meant to communicate? Because I've seen some decent policies from her. I think they don't go far enough, but she's been hamstrung by Keir Starmer, the guy who wants to be sensible, radical and affordable or something like that, when, we know that's not the case. So I feel bad for her. Why? Because she's been hamstrung by her manager, by her leader. It's not her fault. This is on Starmer. And we go to, Owen Jones, who you could say is biased against Starmer or whatever, but his analysis is generally decent, and in this case is pretty on point. There is something, he talks about it being distasteful that he's throwing a woman under the bus. I feel like it's distasteful that he's throwing a person under the bus that has been hamstrung by his own failures, and also the fact that he's briefing Murdoch Press, which is incredibly dodgy considering the amount of attacks that the Labour Party have suffered because of Rupert Murdoch. But whatever, Owen Jones also says that how is Annalise Dodds failing to communicate effectively the party's vision when there is no vision? I challenge people to name some of Starmer's policies. Honestly, please. It doesn't exist. They don't have one. They have absolutely no idea whatsoever what they want to do with power. Their cupboard is completely empty. And the thing is, as Rachel Sharby pointed out, and I mentioned in a previous video, they want power for the sake of power. They do not want people like Corbyn or McDonald in leadership positions, but they have no idea what they want. Do they want to be like Tony Blair? Do they want to be like Gordon Brown? Or do they want to be closer to Corbyn? Not exactly like him, but more left-wing than centre-left. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Can you tell me? Honestly, are there any Labour stands that have subbed to the channel? Can you please tell me what Starmer's policies are? Can you please jump on the channel? I'll set up a podcast for you if you want. We can discuss Keir Starmer. I'll happily do it. I'll give you guys the time because I'm at a loss. I'm at a loss about what's going on. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.